Welcome to the Uniquely Healthy podcast. I'm your host, Maryannauger, or you can call me Marianne. I'm a weight-inclusive, anti-diet certified personal trainer, fitness instructor, online coach, and nutrition coach. I want to help you find your unique way of being healthy through self-care and by incorporating healthy habits. I hope this podcast episodes help you become uniquely healthy. So today I will be joined with Jean-Philippe Morin, also known as JP, to talk about how to get back into the gym after a long break. I thought this was a great topic to address right now because of COVID-19. A lot of the gyms have been closed for a few months. And for some people, not everyone, but for some people, the gyms have been slowly reopening. And I thought it would be a great topic to address as people go back to the gym to work out. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about JP before we get started. So JP has a bachelor's of education, a bachelor's of kinesiology. He also takes various courses here and there and is a constant reader of science. Right now he's a kinesiologist and general manager of a local gym. And his main ideology is that training, particularly strength training, can be used as an anchor for self-improvement. It impacts all other areas of life in various ways, and he strives to optimize human quality of life through training and lifestyle education. And JP also shared some fun facts with me so that I could share with you. He says a day without strong black coffee is a wasted day. He also says that he was a late bloomer to strength training. He started in his early 20s and he practiced karate as a teenager. And last thing he says, his biggest pet peeve in life are pseudoscience and marketing scams. So I think that really tells us a little bit more about JP and who he is as a person and what he does for a living. He's a great friend of mine, and I know you guys will enjoy this episode. He provided such a lot of really good information. So enjoy the episode. Hi, JP. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. You?
Good. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to have a little chat today. This podcast kind of applies to anytime someone takes a break from the gym for a long time. However, it's prevalent right now because of COVID-19, and the gyms have been closed for 3 months, maybe more for some people, and they're slowly starting to open again in some places. I know my gym is open right now, and I did notice that a lot of people go straight into the regular what they used to do before, like 3 months ago, and I thought it was a good idea to talk about how we should approach a break when we go back to the gym. So my first question for you would be, what is the first thing people should do before starting the gym again after a long break?
It's a good question. I think first things first is they should probably assess what they've been doing during that break. Let's say you've been isolated at home without too much material and you stop training, then obviously your strength has gone down, your overall work capacity has gone down. You can't handle as much volume. You can't do the same weights either. If you did have some stuff at home and could manage doing, let's say, some endurance workouts or whatnot, then obviously you were probably able to work on some other things. So you got better at some aspects that you don't really regularly work in the gym that much. But it depends what your previous routine was and getting back to it. I think you really have to draw the line and see what you've been doing and what you're intending to do right now when gyms reopen.
Awesome. So just reevaluate and don't go straight into the program you did before, but just see where you're standing now if you did anything during quarantine, like if you were at home, and look at what your goals were essentially.
Yeah, because, well, some people might have done really good with home workouts and they did not see this as a huge setback. So when they get back to the gym, maybe their routine's going to be a little bit different, but it's not that much of a setback for them. Whereas if you stop working out for 3 months, you cannot get back in the squat rack and expect you'll hit the same weight day one.
Yeah, not a good idea. Do you have any actionable steps that people can take when they start training again? Like, is there general recommendations you could give?
Yeah, I think one of the first recommendations I'd give is maybe having some sort of a program that makes sense. How I see things usually is, let's say your program is expected to last 4 weeks. Let's say it's lasting 4 weeks. Then we had the option of making week 1 sort of an introduction phase where the loading is fairly light and you're getting more familiar with the movements, the patterns, and just making sure your form is okay to start with. And then you're slowly increasing weight and intensity so that you're pretty much peaking week 4. That's a very linear way of doing it. There's other ways, but this is one of them. It's basically just making sure you have, let's say you still have the required mobility and the required strength to do what you intend to be doing. So yeah, I would probably start off somewhere there.
Awesome. Would you give different recommendations for someone that, let's say, wasn't really active during those 3 months, or if someone did something like some body weight exercises or even went for walks, and if someone had almost all of the equipment at home, like if they had dumbbells, what would be like the different recommendations you would give for those people?
Yeah, definitely. I would say I kind of see the week 1 as a test week, but not so on the I want to go heavy and see what I can do and get injured side. More so like keep a progressive approach and go lightly to start with. So let's say you've done nothing and you expect to be back in the gym running, lifting weights and stuff like that. So definitely your volume or your previous program, you have to tune it down a little bit. So maybe do warm up properly and work up to 60% of what you've been doing and cut back on sets, and then give it a few days for that body part and see if you got really sore and this is lasting 3 to 4 days, then you've overdone it. So that means that your work capacity has significantly lowered. So whether you're running or you're eating weights, I think the first thing to consider is either intensity or volume or both have to go down to start with. Just kind of setting a new baseline that might not be the same as before. If you've been working out more, then because of specificity, it really depends what you've been doing. So let's say you've been hitting body weight workouts and your strength endurance has gotten a lot better. It does not mean that if week 1 you're trying to hit your 3 rep max on something that it's going to be good. So why is that? First is there's a big clash in intensity. So if you're doing something and you're working up to 20 reps on said exercise, or you're doing 3 reps rather, then it's a really different output from your nervous system. When the reps are a lot higher, it's more conditioning than it is it gets very neural when the reps are low. So I would not go from doing a lot of reps to doing very few reps all of a sudden. And another reason for that is not only is it neural fatigue and the big clash between the two, is that because you haven't been doing those heavy weights for a couple months, it's not only your muscles but also connective tissue that will take a beating. So if you're loading and you still manage to do it, if your form isn't right or if you don't build back up to there, your connective tissue is taking the balance. So it's a surefire way to get injured within a few weeks, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not a good idea. I know a lot of people, it kind of hurts the ego to not be able to do the same thing they used to do. And yeah, I think we're all in the same boat, I think, when it comes to that, for sure. How would you tell, or how would someone know if they are ready to kind of resume their training as they did before?
It's a really good question. And I think there's two main things to look at. One of them is, can we evaluate your work capacity right now? As I said earlier, kind of taking week one and assessing, okay, let's say on this exercise, I was doing 50 pounds before. And right now, how does 35 or 40 feel? Is that easy? It's easy. Okay, so we can go higher and higher in the next few sessions. Part two, I think right now, is assessing your stress levels in general, because it speaks volumes to your work and recovery capacity, because in my eyes, at least, you can only your work capacity is dictated by your recovery capacity. So if your stress levels are high because maybe right now it's financial issues, maybe it's still something going on with COVID-19, maybe it's work, maybe it's whatever else that's going on in your life, because training is a stressor and it's going to add up to that. So if we're trying to catch up because we have not really done that much during COVID outbreak, and our mentality is, so I'm gonna double up on volume and I'm gonna hit the gym 6 times a week and I'm going to add this much cardio, we're gonna burn out. So it's just not going to work. It might work for a week, but then it's obviously going to stop. So take week one slowly and evaluate your work capacity, and see on the daily, on the day-to-day, when you wake up, are you excessively tired? Do you feel like you would possibly be able to hit the gym again? And it's like we're looking at this system where a lot of things are linked together. So your training volume, your life stress in general, and kind of pondering everything that's around it.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that working out is in any way adds some stress to your body, because that's how we adapt. So if you're stressed from everyday life, then that affects you're just adding stress on top of stress, basically. So a lot of people aren't aware of that, and I'm really glad you did mention that. One other thing I wanted to talk about is soreness, because when you go back to the gym after a while, you typically become a little bit more sore than you might have been when you worked out before. So what would you say, is being sore a good thing? And do you want to be sore, basically?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think still nowadays, a lot of people will associate soreness with getting a good workout. So let's say you've worked out chest yesterday, today your chest is torn up, you can feel everything burning and hurting. So is that a good thing, really? So EIMD, as we call it, is exercise-induced muscle damage, is caused by a few factors. First one is novelty exercises. So if you're changing your routine, there's a fair chance that week 1 or 2, you're going to get more soreness from adapting to new motor patterns. Second thing is working with exercises that are in the stretched part of the muscle. So to give you an example, if you're doing a chest fly, let's say you're doing a chest fly and you're pausing at the bottom where your pectoral muscle is in the stretch portion, there's a fair chance you'll get more soreness. There's also really overdoing on volume. So if you're doing a lot of volume and your chest is sore for 3-4 days after, then maybe you've been overdoing it. Because there's plenty of things that this does, but one of them is it makes it so you have to take frequency down. So in the optimal world for muscle building, you'd probably want in natural trainees to hit a muscle maybe every 5 days. So let's say you're doing this split, we're going to take push-pull legs, and with your rest days in between. When you start over, you're doing your push day every 5 days normally. So if you've been hitting your legs really, really hard, and when it's back to leg days, you're still a bit sore, then it's gonna affect what you can do or your performance. So that's one of the issues. The other thing is, science says if you have created a ton of muscle damage, it also slows down the rate of replenishing glycogen muscles in your muscles after training. So that could essentially take a day or so, maybe more, maybe 24, 48 hours after your training. But in the papers, they've looked at excessive muscle damage and glycogen replenishment. It's been significantly slowing down. So it slows down your recovery. That's one thing. I think I forgot one other thing, but that's essentially it.
All right, sounds good. And you did mention recovery a little bit. What would you recommend for recovery when people go back to the gym? Would you have specific recommendations?
Yeah. Well, I think for recovery, it's very trendy to think I'm going to add this supplement to my regimen or whatnot, and cross my fingers that it actually helps. So if I've been using tap water, I'm going to use BCAAs and expect that I get recovery benefits. Well, it's sort of magical thinking in the sense that training 45 minutes to an hour on the daily is not really that hard, but if you want to optimize your life or your training in general, it's the other things around it that you have to manage. So the biggest thing that we tend to ignore is managing your sleep. So improving your sleep, if it's poor, or just keeping it regular, is one major act to help you build back your training volume or intensity. I would say these days, so sleeping right, looking on the way you're eating, so make sure you're providing enough nutrients. Staying hydrated, because it's going to be summertime also, and being heavily dehydrated is a big decrease in performance. So sleep, hydration, in Also, as we mentioned before, keeping your stress as low as possible. Obviously, you're gonna have some stress, but making sure you take part in activities that are helping, that are stress relieving for you.
Awesome. And also, I think like when you have your program or your routine, to also make sure you don't like just hammer the same muscles all the time, and have that rest in between is a really good idea. Plus all the things you mentioned, like, you know, making sure you do things to reduce your stress, and all that stuff. So really good. Good. I went through pretty much all my questions. Did you have anything that you would give, like any extra advice that you had in mind that you want to give?
Possibly, I would say one of these things is, let's say you're beginner, or maybe even in intermediate or advanced trainees. Now might be a good time to seek out the help of a trainer or someone who does that professionally. And one of the easy or simple reasons for that is, when you get back to the gym or when you work out in general, there's a fair chance that you're either underdoing or overdoing. So just seeking out help, so someone creates a program that's tailored for you, and uh, basically it makes you accountable. So either you were doing too much or too little, it draws the line for you. So yeah, it's also, even for trainers, I mean, I could do my own programming in my head, and sometimes I won't do a lot, and sometimes I'll do a lot more based on how I feel. Or maybe one day I don't feel like training, and I will just hit the few exercises that I like to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you have a decent amount of knowledge, it can work, but is it optimal? Maybe not. So having more of a stable routine there might help.
Yeah, it really depends on your goals. If training just like generally, like you don't have specific goals, then that's a great thing. But if you have
Yeah.
more specific goals, like lifting a certain amount of weight, then having a program can definitely help. But I know not everyone can afford that. So using the tips that you gave throughout the podcast would already be a really good starting point for those who can't get a trainer right now.
Yeah, well, hopefully this is of some sort of help for your listeners. It got a little deeper in some aspects, so hopefully people don't lose sight of what's important there.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any way that people can find you on social media or contact you if needed?
Yeah, you could. I'm more active on my Facebook page than anything. I still do have Instagram. It's the French name though, so maybe a little harder to find out for your listeners. So on Instagram, JP Morin Kinesiologue. So for JP Morin Kinesiologist. And on Facebook is my full name, so Jean-Philippe Morin Kinesiologue. There's a page there. I usually put up a decent amount of stuff when I can, when I'm not too busy. And nowadays I'm having some fun myth busting, so it's been one of my main focuses.
Yeah, I love your live videos doing that. I feel like I'll have to invite you again on the podcast to do some myth busting on our favorite topics to talk about. So I'll make sure to link in the description box all your information so that people can like your Facebook page and follow you on Instagram. You definitely provide a lot of really, really good information. It is in French, but for the most part, I believe. But it's possible with Facebook, I believe you have like the option to do the translation through Facebook. So that's a good idea. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast to talk about this. It was super nice to have you on.
All right, my pleasure.
Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed all the information that JP provided in this podcast episode. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure you press the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a video. And if you want, you can also subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, where you listen to your podcast. That could be like on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc. I will post some links down below so that you can find the podcast where you listen to it. And I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.